Hey friends, welcome back to Chat with Nat, Conversations That Count, where we talk real life, real money, and real strategies to help build a life without worry. Today's episode is brought to you by Casa de Confidence Productions. Julie and Dan Collins are the kind of team every podcaster dreams of. Supportive, professional, and incredibly talented at helping your voice come through clearly and confidently. If you've ever thought, maybe I should start a podcast, go connect with them at casadeconfidence.website and learn more about what that looks like. This week, I want to talk about something really important as we wind down February. And you know, my series of caregiving and how it impacts the 5 F's in your life just recently ended. Last week's episode was a great conversation with my friend Anne-Marie Entner about the other side of caregiving, when your person is no longer here, and adjusting to who you are and what that looks like. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and listen to last week's episode. It was an amazing conversation. But I want to talk about, as we're winding down February, love, right? It's the month that we celebrate love. We talk about love. We do all the things related around love. But I want to talk about love in a little bit of a different context. Okay. What if loving your family wasn't just about showing up? What if it was about making sure they never have to fundraise for your funeral, drain their retirement for your care? Or guess what you would have wanted? We say we would do anything for our family, but would we plan for them? Because love without protection becomes pressure. And today, we're going to talk about what it really means to love our family financially through long-term care planning, living benefits, and life insurance. This episode might stretch you a bit, but it might also change your family tree. I started planning for this episode a couple of weeks ago, and last Thursday, my son's dad passed away unexpectedly, young, and it's just a tragic situation. He still has 2 small kids that are minors, and my son, and also 2 older daughters. And it's a heartbreaking situation. And I'm going to touch a little bit on that throughout today's episode, because I think it drives home some of the topics I want to talk about and some of the points I'm going to be making. So before we jump into the episode, Nat's money tip for the week. If your financial plan only works when you're healthy and alive forever, you don't have a plan. You have a wish. A real wealth plan protects your income, your independence, your dignity, your spouse, your kids, and your legacy. If a 401k is your only strategy, we need to talk. I'm going to be doing an episode on that in the next month or so, so watch out for it as well. Retirement accounts grow money, but protection strategies protect people, and those two are not the same. All right, so let's jump into this week's episode. The financial reality nobody talks about. Let's start with facts. 70% of people over age 65 will need some form of long-term care. And y'all, I've talked about this statistic in the past, and I think I was quoting it at like 65%. So that number has gone up. The average cost of providing a private nursing home room is over $100,000 per year. And I can confirm that because I was checking into it in December when we thought that might be the next step for my mom. Assisted living averages $4,500 to $6,000 per month, and that number is just climbing. Family caregivers, even in your own home, spend about $7,200 per year out of pocket. Nearly 1 in 3 caregivers go into debt. And that's just the financial side. As a caregiver, I can tell you this. Health changes fast, faster than you think. And when it does, you don't just need love. You need liquidity. You need flexibility. You need a plan. Because when there isn't one, your kids become the long-term care plan. Your retirement becomes the emergency fund, and stress becomes the loudest voice in the room. That is not the legacy that most people want to leave. So let's talk about long-term care, the plan you don't want to need. That is such an important title to this segment because you guys, I tell people all the time, if you're going to get long-term care or even living benefits, which we'll talk about more in a few minutes, but if you're going to get those kind of coverages, get them attached to a life insurance policy for two reasons. They're cheaper when they're attached to a life insurance policy than if you purchase them in their own standalone plans. And second of all, you're guaranteed to use it one way or another when it's attached to a life insurance plan. If you're not one of the 70% who ever needs long-term care or living benefits, and you have it in a standalone plan, you will have paid for that plan and never used it. So that money went out. Yes, the protection in case you need it is important, but wouldn't it be better attached to a life insurance plan where if you don't use the long-term care, the money goes to your family when you pass. And so those premiums you paid pay off in the long run. Let's clear something up here, y'all. Medicare does not cover long-term custodial care. Medicare also doesn't pay family caregivers like myself to step away from their jobs, to reduce the hours in their business, to give up so many aspects of their personal life. Okay? It covers short-term rehab, not years of assisting with bathing, dressing, mobility, memory care, in-home help. Medicaid, you have to spend down most of your assets to qualify. So Medicaid does have programs where they will cover caretaking, pay a family caregiver. They have programs that will pay for nursing homes and things like that. But you basically have to be financially destitute to qualify for those plans. That means the wealth you worked decades to build could evaporate. And here's something else most people don't realize. 40% of people receiving long-term care are between the ages of 18 and 64. This is not just an old person problem. It's an unpredictability problem. And women are more likely to need long-term care and need it longer. Why? Because we live longer, which means we have more time to age and for our bodies to decline and require that kind of care. So when I talk about long-term care planning, I'm not just talking about nursing homes. Yes, for the elderly, when we age, when our bodies don't function the way that they used to. Absolutely, it's to cover that. But it's to cover the care that can happen when life throws the unexpected our way, when somebody becomes disabled because of an accident, because of a medical condition. What I'm talking about here is being able to fill in the gaps no matter what comes your way. Protecting your independence, protecting your spouse's retirement, your kids' retirement, protecting your children from financial pressure. If you're between 18 and 64 is actually what I said. I had to go back to my note there real quick. If you're between 18 and 64, you could possibly still have children in your home that feel the financial pressure when money has to be pulled to cover cost of care, medical expenses, and so forth. And it also, y'all, it protects your dignity. Having long-term care can protect your dignity. There are options. There's traditional long-term care insurance. Yes, you can get a standalone plan. But again, I don't recommend that because if you're not one of the 70% that has to use it, you've paid all those premiums and you don't get those back and you never use the policy. So a hybrid life insurance policy with long-term care riders is a great option because if you don't use those benefits while you're living, they will pass to your children, to your beneficiaries once you've graduated life. There are asset-based solutions. There's even annuities, that lifetime income, that personal pension you can set up that have long-term care multipliers. My parents have one of these. If one of them is confined into a nursing home facility, the income doubles for up to 5 years. That's a game changer, y'all, when you're talking about over $100,000 a year potentially. The strategy you select matters less than the fact that you have one. Okay? So getting that standalone policy is better than not having one. But there's smart ways to have them. So talk to somebody like myself who can help you figure out exactly what it is you need and the best way to structure that for your finances and for your family. Okay? We insure our homes in case they burn down. We insure our cars in case we get in an accident. We insure our cell phones in case we drop them in the toilet. So why aren't we insuring our independence? This next section, I want to talk about living benefits. Life insurance you can use while alive. So yes, long-term care provides that care in a facility, possibly at home, depending on the circumstances, but it's not going to, you can use it for caregiving costs and things like that, but there's very specific qualifications within long-term care plans. I really love living benefits. Living benefits is life insurance you can use while you're alive. That's the simple way to explain it. Life insurance you can use while you're alive. And this is one of my favorite conversations because most people think life insurance only pays when you die. But what if it could pay while you're still alive? When you get a life insurance plan with living benefits attached, those living benefits allow access to your death benefit if you're diagnosed with cancer, you have a heart attack, a stroke, a chronic or critical illness, even critical injury in some cases. It depends on the carrier and the way the plan is set up. But there are so many options out there. So if any of those situations happen, you can tap into your death benefit while you're living instead of draining your retirement to cover the costs. Now, yes, that does mean there's less to pass on to your beneficiaries when you pass away. Well, you could get multiple life insurance policies, so you're covered in both situations. But most importantly, what you're not leaving behind is a bunch of debt because you pulled everything from your retirement and maybe even things from your family members to help take care of you when you weren't prepared and when life caught you off guard. 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will develop cancer. Someone has a heart attack every 40 seconds in the US. Roughly 66% of bankruptcies are tied to medical issues. Y'all, it's not death that bankrupts families. It's illness. Living benefits can replace lost income, cover medical expenses, allow for experimental treatments, cover travel for care, protect retirement accounts, and let your spouse focus on you, not the finances. So let me ask you something. If you survived a major illness right now, would you be financially okay? Or would you drain everything you've built? Let me ask that again. If you survived a major illness right now, tomorrow, would you financially be okay? Or would it drain everything you've spent your life to build? That's not fear-based planning. That's wisdom-based planning. All right, let's move on to life insurance. I know a lot of people think I'm too young. I don't need it. I insure little kids with life insurance because you don't know what's going to happen. And not only that, life insurance plans can allow you to build cash inside of them that pays for college, weddings in the future, a down payment on the house, a car while they're going to college, seed money to start their own business someday. So when you want to invest and save for your kids, you can do it inside a life insurance policy and create that wealth or that savings for their future while also protecting it. The life insurance part is the heart level, y'all. Life insurance is not about you. It's about what happens to the people you love if you're not here. So let's talk a little truth. 42% of households would face financial hardship within 6 months if the primary bread earner died. Final expenses alone average $7,000 to $12,000. Many families rely on GoFundMe after a tragedy. The average cremation is between $3,000 and $6,000, I would say. The average funeral is anywhere from probably $15,000 to $30,000, depending on what you want that funeral to look like. Do you have that cash just sitting around? And even if you do, why would you use it for that when you can put a protection in place that will do it for you? And that $30,000 can be invested or saved or grown. Maybe it's part of your retirement or it's your emergency fund. Well, then that's gone. Okay. GoFundMe is not a financial plan. It is a great product that is there that helps people who haven't had the opportunity to be prepared, who maybe nobody ever sat down with them, explained what they should have. Okay. But it's not a financial plan. Life insurance does three powerful things. It replaces income, eliminates debt, and creates instant liquidity. And permanent policies, they can build tax-advantaged cash value, serve as private banking, offset estate taxes, and create generational leverage. Life insurance is the only tool that creates an instant estate the day that you fund it. That's powerful. That is love in action. Okay, so I told y'all in the very beginning, my son's dad passed away last week after I had already started planning for this episode. And he has 5 living children. He had a son that died of SIDS before he and I got married. 2 of those children under 18 years old, and one of them is special needs. Now, we didn't talk a lot, and we had our bumpy years after our divorce, but we had years we got along really well. Now, my son is about to turn 25, and so we haven't had that regular interaction about child support, costs of things that my son needs, school expenses, visitation, and things like that for several years. And we have had a couple of good conversations, but I would say, gosh, it's probably been a couple of years since we really had any in-depth communication at all. And probably at least a year or so since we really talked at all, which is kind of sad, I think, because we have a son and we don't have a tumultuous relationship. But I guess at the same time, there wasn't necessarily a need for the communication, but he is my son's dad. Needless to say, part of the conversations we have had 2 or 3 years ago were about life insurance for him. Now, he has had some significant illnesses and medical issues over the years, and we don't need to get into that because that part doesn't really matter. He was also, as an adult, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so insulin dependent. Now, there was a time when I first started my business 7 years ago that it was very hard to find an insurance carrier, if you could find one at all, that would cover somebody that has type 1 insulin dependent diabetes. However, the industry has shifted a lot since then, and they really focus on your A1C score. So if your A1C score is in a really healthy range, even though you're insulin dependent, there are carriers who will provide life insurance coverage. And so 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about that specifically. And here's one of the things. My son's dad, my ex-husband, was not the best at taking care of his health, even though he knew he needed to. He worked hard. He stayed busy. He probably stayed too busy and worked too hard a lot of the time. And as we were going through this conversation, I let him know, here are the things I need to know to submit to underwriting to find out if we can get you covered. And if so, what does that look like? To at least put something that would cover final expenses in place, but hopefully a policy that would at least leave some money behind, especially for the youngest of his kids. And we were going back and forth. There was a bunch of information I needed for him. And I kept saying, I need this information. I need this information. I need this information. And he had a couple health things happened. He had a couple life shifts happen. And the truth is, he never got me the information so we could find out for sure. And I talked to the mother of the two youngest children on Saturday, just checking on her and the kids. And we were kind of talking about, and they are now divorced. They were still married at that time. And she had been involved in the conversation, trying to get some coverage in place and things like that initially. And then we were really looking, at what he needed and what we could get for him. So I was really interacting with him about the minute details of it. But I told her on Saturday, I said, I wish that part of this phone call was me telling you that he had a life insurance policy and that I had started the paperwork to get the proceeds from that life insurance policy to send to you and the kids, or to split between all of his kids. But I can't say that. And look, like I said, my son is almost 25. And so it doesn't affect me or him in the way of missing out on financial support growing up. But I'd love to still be able to have told my son's bonus mom on Saturday that there was a life insurance policy, to be able to tell my son there was a life insurance policy and that there was something that their dad had put in place for them. And I'll be honest, I don't know, with all of his history and health problems, if we would have been able to get him covered, but we never did fully go through the process. And look, at the end of the day, I can follow up. But if the person doesn't give me the information and sit down and start the ball rolling, there's only so much I can do. It doesn't mean that I don't still hate it. I paused there just to let that sink in a little bit. We don't know what our expiration date is, or our graduate life date, or the day we're going to die, however you like to reference it. We don't know when that is. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know if we're going to be diagnosed with a traumatic illness. We don't know if we're going to face a life-changing disability or injury at some point. So why not be prepared? Why not be prepared? As I get ready to close out this episode, I want to touch on again the fact that your retirement is not the family emergency fund, and it is up to you to make sure it doesn't become that. So here's where I'm going to stretch you a little bit. What happens if your parents didn't plan, your spouse gets sick, or you become disabled? Nearly 30% of caregivers reduce work hours. And remember, I said in the beginning of the episode, Medicare does not pay family caregivers for caregiving. Many people have to tap retirement accounts early. And every early withdrawal doesn't just cost you today, it costs decades of compounding. You can lose hundreds of thousands long term because of a single crisis. Your retirement should be funding freedom, travel, joy, giving, and capturing time, making memories, not medical emergencies. So here's where it all connects. I always talk about those 5 F's. It's a fundamental part of this podcast. And so here they are. Faith is planning. Let me do that again. Faith is planning for stewardship. Family Protection is love. Finances, strategies create options. Fitness, our health is unpredictable, even if you are physically fit. And fun, peace allows you to enjoy today. Protection is not pessimism, it's preparation. And preparation creates peace. My hot take for this week is if you say you love your family, but refuse to have uncomfortable financial conversations, you're leaving them vulnerable. Love isn't just emotional, it's operational. And waiting until you make more money to protect your family, that's avoidance dressed up as patience. Let's be honest, the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets to protect them. So just put things in place. The younger you are, the more affordable it is, especially for permanent policies. The right time to protect your family financially was yesterday, but the second best time is today. If you don't know how long-term care would be funded, what happens if you get sick, what happens if you die, whether your current policy even works or when it was last reviewed, message me the word protect. I'll take a look at what you have in place. I'll tell you where there's possibly issues with those plans, or when they might end if they're temporary plans, or what today might be available that wasn't when you put those plans in place. And if you don't have a plan, I will help you to build one that will allow your family to grieve and not fundraise, heal without having to hustle, and live more than just trying to survive. This is how we change family trees. This is how we build legacy. And this is how we love the people that mean the most to us out loud. We protect them well. I hope this episode resonated with you. If it did, please share it with somebody who might need this information, who might have questions financially, or just because it's great information to have, and education to gain. You can reach me on Instagram at Natalie Kime. You can also follow me on Substack under Chat with Nat to get more information about my caregiving journey, about financial strategies, and a whole host of other things I might get an itch to talk about at some point along the way. But until next time, protect your peace, protect your people, and protect your ability to show up when it matters most.